The settings menu allows you to set all the configuration for the servers and the televisions, and you see the sub-menus down the left here. So this is where you would set up your locale, which basically you're setting up your broadcast system, whether it be DVB or ATSC, and there's a couple of buttons here to set whether you're doing mapping the guide button on the remote to logical channels, or if it launches the guide. It's a facility provided on the system, and then your power on or instant on reboot mechanism or not. So you can do standby normal, instant on reboot, or instant on mute. Update, this is where you can pull in updated TV model name files or folders, your channel icons, and your smart apps icons. So these are cloud-based pulls into the server, and these updates are provided via LG. So when a new model is introduced, for example, this zip folder gets updated in the cloud, and then the integrator can pull this down into the server to match the models being deployed in the property. Carousel, this is where all the data files are entered into the carousel for delivery to the televisions. So for example, you have files associated with the electronic program guide data, your service carousel, and CPU updates for updating the television software can also be placed here. Configuration, this is the output configuration of the server. So it's the multicast IP address for the televisions to talk back to the server. If you think about it this way, you'd set up this IP address in the television with this port number, and this is how it gets its data delivery from the server. So this is set up in the television. Then you also define how many video playout slots from the server are also active. I think it's up to 21 that can be set. VPN, this is where you'd upload your VPN certificate file for secure remote access. Users, this is the tab that's used to set up your different user accounts on the server. So the default is super user, ProCentric, full admin client privileges, but you can create your own accounts and define what functions and features of the system the user would have access to. So for example, you could set a basic user for access by a hotelier, just so they can do some basic editing functions of the content. And now we get into the TV section. This is under splash screen is where you'd set up a splash screen file that would be downloaded into the TV and would display on the television at boot up time. Language, this is where you set your default and additional languages for the system. Up to a maximum of 6 are settable, configurable on any one system. We have up to 30 plus languages. This is a global product, so multiple languages are supported. Typically 1 or 2 is provided, and from a user standpoint, if you select a alternative language, it'll be reset back to default at a preset checkout time the following morning. This is an important area, the channel mapping. On ProCentric Direct, the way the channel map is managed is a little different. Prior to ProCentric Direct, the older Java system, you had a TLX channel map in the television, and then the application had a duplicate channel map essentially for presentation of the electronic program guide. Now there's just one channel map, and that's within the ProCentric Direct application. So you're using physical tune from the application, and there's no TLX channel map. So this is how you configure all the channels. You select the physical and logical order of the channels with the icons. So this is how you build up your channel map and set the electronic program guide configuration up. Smart apps. Smart apps have icons associated with them that will appear in the launch page that you set up within your user interface, and this is how you configure each of them, so you activate which ones. You can actually activate all of these, but the ones that are present in the TV will actually appear on the screen. So you can't basically say that you're going to launch applications that aren't present on the television. Under TV configuration is where you add your TLX file for the installer menu settings. So you would add based on the model name that you have on property, and installer menu because your channel map is not required anymore, and you'd set up the TLX file here and add it into essentially the data carousel. That will be delivered to the television. Fonts, you can upload different fonts for use in the user interface, and there's a LG display of the standard fonts used. Firmware update is where you can deliver firmware updates to the TV, adding files again by model name, and they would be delivered in the nightly update to the televisions, or you can force reboots via the warm mode setting when power on, power off. And then we move to the hotel service tabs. This is where you'd configure your room number to TV serial number settings. You can edit those manually. There is a way of doing it automatically if you've got a property management system interface. And likewise for grouping, you can group individual rooms and TVs into a group and deliver content specific to that group, such as a conference attendee list. PMS, this is where you'd configure actually this is the legacy PMS interface, and you'd set up the way to go and fetch PMS data via this tab. We move on to external service. So this is down. Electronic program guide. This is where you set up the feed for the electronic program guide data file collection. So it's a login and password, so you're basically telling the server where to go and fetch that data file and how much EPG data you're storing in the television. Weather, you'd set up, actually the weather map's not showing here, but this is where you'd set up your longitude and latitude of the weather map, or selected on the map, and whether you're selecting Celsius or Fahrenheit for the weather display. External server settings is if you were using an external server for PMS interface. And then lastly, we do have a flight information feed. This is a subscription service that you'd have to sign up for, and there's payments associated with that. But basically you set up the login to that site here. And then there is a help tab under this setting as well.